I'm gonna move these two methods down. So I'm gonna copy them. Well, actually, I'm gonna cut them, and then I'm gonna paste them maybe right here. So I keep all the private method at the bottom. So let's go do the update right here. So the update is going to be very similar, which is why it'll be a good idea to just refactor it. So I'll let you guys do that. The only difference is here we're going to get the actual user because we need that user. And also here we're going to pass in the current username. Okay. And we need the username. So the new username and the new email, which is going to be this. Okay. Oops. So now we need to get that user. So let's do user. So that's going to be the current user because they're updating their information because that's not a new user, and we need to add the exception. So with that current user, we can actually set the information that we want. So we're not going to do any password. So we can remove that, and we're not going to set the ID because they already have an existing ID. So we're not going to do that either. And then we're going to set the first name. We're going to set the last name and the username and the email. And we're not doing anything with password, so we can remove that one as well. And then we're going to set the is active and is locked. And we're going to do the same for the role. We're going to go ahead and update their picture. Well, actually, we're not giving them any temporary image URL because they're like updating their information. So they probably already have an actual image. So we're not doing that either. But we're also going to check to see if they need to update their password. So here, well, with this and pass in the current user. And this new user, we don't need it because the user already exists. And we pass in the current user, and in here we're gonna pass in the current user as well and return that user. So that's all we're gonna be doing for the update. As you can see, all those three methods, they're very similar. So you should definitely refactor them and using some if condition. So to make the method takes different route depending on what's happening. So last name, we're not gonna update the join date, so I should remove that as well. And we need the username here, the email. Okay, so that's all we have to do for the update. The only difference is we're getting the user back because we're passing in a new username. So if we go back here, as you can see, this is going to be true, this entire if statement. So it's going to return that user here. So the route is going to be through this. It's not going to go into the else statement because we're passing a current username, and it's going to check to make sure that the email and the username doesn't already exist, and then return us that user. So that's what we're doing here, which is why we're able to get that current user. Now let's do the delete. So delete is going to be pretty easy. All we have to do is to call the user repository, and then we call delete, and then we pass in the actual ID, and this is going to delete the user. And this is supposed to be by ID like this. Okay, so delete by ID is going to find the user by ID and then delete it. And for the reset password, so what we have to do, we have to try to see if we can find the user. So we can do user, and we're gonna see if a user exists for that particular email. So like this, we're gonna pass the email. So if this is not null, so let's go back up. So if the user is null, meaning we didn't find anyone, so that user doesn't exist in our database. In that case, then we can stop the execution of the method. So we're going to throw a new email not found exception. And then here we're going to do no underscore no user found by email. So no user found by email. Okay. And let's go ahead and create this. More action, create constant field, and let's create it in the user service, user implementation constant. And then here we can just say no user found for email, like this. Okay, so that way we can throw that exception and then give him the error message with the email. So we're gonna pass in the email. As you can see, there was a found by email colon space, and then we can pass in the email here. So we can do plus email, like this, which is the email we receive here. So otherwise, we're gonna try to reset their password and then send them an email. Now let's create a new password. So let's do string password, and we're gonna call the generate password. And after that, we need to set that password to the user. So we're gonna do user.set password. Remember, that's gonna be the encoded password. So let's do encoded password. And here we pass in the raw password. And then since we changed something on the user, we need to save the user. So we're gonna call the user repository, and then we're gonna save the user like this. And then we're gonna send an email to the user. So let's do email service dot send, and then here we have to pass in the first name. So we're gonna do user get first name, and then we have to pass in the password, which is the raw password. So we're gonna do password, and then the email. So we're gonna do user get email. So, and then here we have to add this signature to the signature of the method. So that should be everything. We need to add this exception as well. Yes. So this is gonna do the trick for us to just set the new password, encode it, save it, and then send the email. Now let's do the update profile picture, which is here. So let's see if we can do. So first thing, we have to validate the user, because you know they can call this directly if they're just updating the profile. Like I go into my profile page and I click, you know, update my picture or change my picture. Like I'm not gonna send like a whole form. I'm just sending a form with my username and the picture. So here we can validate to make sure the user is valid, and then we can do validate, and then we pass in the username. After that, we pass in null because we don't have any value for this. Okay, so it's gonna go to the first if statement, and then it's gonna validate the user for us. Once we can validate that the user exists, meaning if it didn't throw any exception, then we can go ahead and see if we can save profile image, and then here we pass in the user, and then we pass in the profile image here. Okay, so this we haven't implemented it yet, and we're gonna go ahead and do that. So here I'm gonna return the user. So this should be everything for now. We just have to implement those this method, this private method. So as you can see, the save profile image is not it's not implemented. So we're gonna go ahead and do those, and then after that we should be done with the user service implementation. We can do a little refactoring and cleanup and things like that, but that's gonna be pretty much it.